You're listening to Dateline Latin America, Tear Gas and Tango with
Joe Goldman, 37 years with ABC News, then with UPI, with The Village Voice, and many other.
And me, Daniel Schweimler, originally from London, formerly of the BBC, 19 years, and more recently with Al Jazeera English across Latin America.
They'll be sitting at a kitchen table in Buenos Aires talking about their journalistic adventures across the region, covering earthquakes, flooding and fires, talking to presidents, charlatans, sports stars and other newsmakers. In short, journalism and the state of the world.
Well, here we are, Daniel, and talking this week about soccer or football. This week we will have the finals of the Argentine League, with two very surprising teams, Huracan and Platense.
I mean, tiny teams, really. This is a country where football is huge, as we all know. It's a bit of a cliche. But none of the big five, Boca Juniors, River Plate, Independiente, Racing or San Lorenzo, have got to the final. So, yeah, as you say, Huracan and Platense, I mean, your house is within you can smell, you can see, you can hear Platense.
Smell, definitely, yes.
Okay, yeah. And they've been celebrating, haven't they? They're a team that since the last time they got anywhere close to the Argentine Championship, they finished runners-up in 1916. So this is big for Platense.
I could say I remember it well, but I won't. Yeah, it's been very exciting around us. We are very friendly, actually quite friendly with the hinchada, the fans. There's another group of fans on the other side of the stadium who supposedly are a bit violent, but our fans it's a family group. They bring kids there. Sometimes they bring these blow-up jumping jack games for the kids. It's really lovely. Well, they are really celebrating.
I mean, it's very much a neighbourhood thing, isn't it? Because you're on the edge of the Saavedra, you're just over the border from Saavedra, and it's north of Buenos Aires, and football teams are very much part of the barrio, the neighbourhood. I mean, my wife's father was born in Saavedra, grew up in Saavedra, and was a staunch Platense fan his whole life. I think he was even buried, cremated, with his Platense shirt on. That's how staunch a fan he was. And my first visit to Buenos Aires back in the 80s, Platense were then a first division team, and he took me, I spoke hardly a word of Spanish, took me to the cancha, to the ground, where we saw Platense play, and I met half the family there. They were there on the terraces. It's where they met on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon to watch that team play. But no success, apart from runners-up in 1916. And now the big final, not being played in Buenos Aires, although they're two Buenos Aires team, being played Santiago del Estero, which is something like a 10-hour drive away from Buenos Aires on Sunday
Definitely
afternoon.
A neutral stadium.
No doubt, no doubt about that. Huracan, a slightly bigger club from Buenos Aires, Parque Patricios neighbourhood of Buenos Aires. They were big in the 1920s, though. They won the championship 4 times then. A brief victory in the mid-70s, but nothing since then. These are small clubs with a small financial outlay, cheap players, whoever's left over, whatever they can get, kids coming up through the ranks. Nothing like the big guys, the Boca Juniors, the River Plates, who pack in 50, 60,000 fans for every game. These are much smaller teams. I don't know what's happened this season, that one of these two will be champion on Sunday.
I would say in general, the league in Argentina is much more distributive of championships than other leagues around the world, where you have, I don't know, in Turkey, Galatasaray, or, there's teams that just win all the time. In the German league.
German league, yeah. Spain, it's nearly always either Real Madrid or Barcelona. Right. Scotland, it's either Rangers or Celtic most of the time. France, Paris Saint-Germain almost every year. So it's mostly Boca Juniors and River Plate, the two big rivals, but the others do get a look in.
I'm a big Newell's Old Boys fan. We're a team from Rosario, and we've won 4 times since I've been here. I've been here 100 years, but whatever. No. And, you see teams like Estudiantes from La Plata will get in, will win a championship. Didn't Central Cordoba win one year?
I think they have, yeah. And my team, Argentina's Juniors, a small Buenos Aires team from the La Paternal neighborhood. I was there at the Huracan Stadium in 2010 when they won the championship. Again, it was the club where Diego Maradona made his entrance into football.
Riquelme also?
Some really good players, yeah.
Absolutely. It's like a feeding ground.
Yeah, the semillero, the seed bed of Argentine football, they call it. And on the money they make from these youngsters, although it's a small club, they can sometimes make, build some reasonable teams out of it. And also, Alexis McAllister, playing at Liverpool now, also is from Argentina's Juniors.
Okay, yeah. And another team that's had a lot of success is Vélez Sarsfield. They're a small local team from Liniers, which is a working class area. They have one of the most beautiful clubs I've ever seen, an unbelievable stadium, much nicer to me than the big stadiums.
But this passion, we always go about the passion for Argentine football. Where do you think, other countries are passionate about football, but I'm not sure it takes over in quite the same way that it does in Argentina. One of the first questions you're asked when you meet somebody is, ¿de qué cuadro sos? Which football team do you support? Yeah. And unfortunate for those, and there are plenty that I've met, who are not interested in football, don't want to, play that game. But the vast majority do. Men predominantly, but increasingly women as well, as passionate about their football. I wonder if it's something to do with the barrio, the neighbourhood. Football teams are representative of the neighbourhood, and people form a bond with it, with the team, with the area where they live. And certainly in the days of mass immigration, end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th, when these football teams were being built, people were leaving behind a homeland, a culture, a language sometimes, and they were forging an identity in this new country. And I think the football team was probably a big part of that.
I would say so. I also think Argentinians are passionate. They're passionate about tango. They're passionate about arts. They're passionate in cinema. And I think that translates quite a bit when it comes to soccer.
And introduced, of course, by the dour English, the British, it must be said. I think the Scots and the English, railway workers predominantly, building the Argentine railways, would play football in their spare time. And that's why you've got a lot of these English names. It shouldn't be Boca Juniors or River Plate. It should be Rio de la Plata.
How about Newell's Old Boys? Chaco forever.
Chaco forever. But how's Newell's Old Boy pronounced? You wouldn't know it was an English word. Newell's Old Boys.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's Newell's Old Boys.
And they actually, Newell's was Isaac Newell's, who was the founder, who was in fact a railroad engineer up in Rosario. And instead of Newells, Newell's Old Boys, they have turned it into Nye, the N with the tilde, ULS.
Right.
Newell's.
Okay, yeah.
Newell's.
With the delightful nickname, the Lepers.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
right.
Not quite sure where that comes from.
I think there was a situation where the team went to a leper colony, and as a means of local harmony and stuff like that in the greater Rosario area, and they just got the name Lepers.
Mm-hmm. Right. Some of the rivalries are intense. The Boca River is the famous one. Argentina's Juniors' great enemies are Platense, the squids as they're known, the calamares, whereas we have the delightful name, the bichos colorados, the ladybirds, are my team. But some of these rivalries did have resulted in some quite serious violence in the past. The Barra Brava, the hardcore fans, and they were not so bad now because they've banned away fans 2 or 3 seasons ago. Been going to games recently where only the home fans are allowed, which is strange when the away team scores a goal because there's silence, but quite nice in the sense that it attracts a different fan base. There are people going with small children. There are lots of elderly people going who don't feel as threatened as they did when there was a big police presence to keep the fans apart. So that's kind of nicer.
Daniel, as somebody who is a big English football fan, soccer fan, has that ever been an issue where visiting fans cannot enter the stadium?
I think there's been isolated cases, but this is the whole season. This is across the board. I think there have been bans across Europe when fans have broken the rules. They've thrown things on the pitch. There's been racial abuse. They have been banned from some games. But this is across the Argentine league.
And so, for a number of years.
For a number of years now. And they keep talking about bringing them back. But because it's so much more peaceful for the residents around the ground, and as I mentioned before, for some of the other people who now go. And I've been at the last few Argentina's juniors games. They filled the stadium just with home fans because it's so much more relaxing to watch your football in that environment. So I'm not sure whether the visitors will ever come back. We'll have to wait and see about that one.
I don't think they've had trouble filling the stadiums in general. I think most of the stadiums represent the number of fans that club has. So you'll have, River is a huge stadium. It's the real, it's where the finals of the World Cup were held. But other than that, I mean, even Boca probably has about 40,000. Vélez has 40,000. Vélez fills the stadium up.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and it's a small club.
And what you'll also have, if people can't get into the grounds, they will congregate around the grounds. You're going to have this on Sunday outside your house. There will be the Platense fans who don't travel to Santiago del Estero. They'll be bringing their portable barbecues. They'll be bringing their alcohol in plastic bottles. It's going to be delightful, yes. I don't, who's going to be cleaning your front garden, your front patio out on Monday morning, but someone's going to have to do that.
Yeah, I will be traveling, so I won't be there. I'll probably be more interested in basketball and baseball at that point.
Yeah, the Knicks are not doing so well, are they?
They need to win the next game tonight. We're talking on Tuesday night. So,
I mean, one of the big differences in Argentina, certainly with English football, is that the president of the club is voted in by the fans, by the membership of the club. So there are elections. Sometimes the elections get a bigger turnout for the football elections than they do for the national political elections. And a lot of politicians, the most notable being Mauricio Macri, the former president, was for a long time the president of Boca Juniors Football Club. He rose to prominence, became a political figure as the head of his club. And won elections, and the club did quite well on the pitch. So I think a lot of people, Boca fans and others, thought, well, he ran the football club very well. Maybe we should let him run the country. Must be said that was a disaster in many people's eyes, but as a football president, probably did quite well.
Boca did quite well, and you really could say that. I'm a baseball fan. Baseball is very different in structure and how salaries, everything. You have here clubs that are really clubs in the sense that they have a wide structure of different sports, different activities. Some of them have schools even. River Plate has schools. So it's a very big organization, and it's not a private organization.
No, again, very much of the barrio, of the neighborhood, isn't it? I mean, Argentina's Juniors has a huge complex, bigger than the stadium, the Polideportivo they call it, fairly close to the ground, where they have a swimming pool, and they have netball, volleyball, hockey, all sorts of sports for all ages, and also just picnic areas where you can go and have an asado, grill your meat on a Sunday afternoon, listen to the football if that interests you. But football is not the only element. It's how you identify with the region, but it's so many other things as well. And that, I think, also leads to the loyalty for the club. You belong to the association. You belong to much more than just a football team.
Absolutely. My middle son played baseball at Vélez Sarsfield. Argentina is not known, even though it's about ranked number 21 in the world in baseball, which is not bad. But they're not known for it, and there are only about 8 clubs, 4 of which are Japanese clubs, Japanese Argentine clubs. He played at Vélez Sarsfield, which is most known for its tremendous football tradition. But they have a tremendous, beautiful, not only the stadium, but the whole facility is absolutely wonderful. And it's part of a barrio that's in the northwest part of the city. And the people in that area just congregate. And at one time, I know that they had about 30,000 associates, members, as well as Ferro, another club, which has really not made it back into in football, they've not made it back into the A-League for a long time, but they still have like 20,000 associates and long tradition of basketball, for example.
I mean, that's the positive side of it. The negative was this kind of political structure. When the elections happen, you'll have various candidates trying to become the president who will promise a certain amount of favours to groups of fans. Sectors of the fan base will say, we'll vote for you, what are you going to give me in return? And so in the past, it might have been free tickets. It might have been transport to the away games. It might have been hotels when they were playing in the Copa Libertadores in Brazil or in Paraguay. And so you get these favours are done to fans to win votes, and then you get into office, and then there's another election, and next time you've got to offer more. So presidents or contenders for the presidency had their different rival fan bases. And the fans, what they would do, some of them had control of the parking around the ground and would charge people for parking. Others would control the drug trade in the ground. They'd be selling drugs on the terraces. And this was, the people who they supported, the club officials, would have to turn a blind eye. So that led to the rise, in many ways, in many cases, of these violent barra brava, who would then fight each other for control of these very lucrative industries with their guy in the club hierarchy. So it still exists, but it doesn't seem to be, at the moment, there's been far less deaths recently on the terraces, in the areas around the grounds. 10 years or so ago, I was always doing stories about clashes between fans, somebody dying, somebody being shot, often in a battle over drug turf, and sometimes simply over the football, and often playing into these big rivalries we've mentioned, Boca River, Racing versus Independiente.
Newell's, Rosario Central is a very violent, the whole city is literally divided in half.
Well, I was there recently on Rosario, and I've been to the Newell's part around where Lionel Messi grew up, and Newell's colours are black and red.
Yep.
And everything's painted black and red, the curbstones, the lampposts, some of the buildings. And then on this last occasion, I realised I was in the Rosario Central area of the city, yellow and blue.
Yep.
Everything was painted yellow and blue. So when you're within, 10 blocks, 15 blocks of the stadium, you know that you're in the territory.
It's
of the
amazing.
It
really
quite
is.
something. It's very territorial.
And we can also talk about there's always been like an edge to football here, soccer, where there's kind of, when you talk about elections being held, it's a very powerful position. And a lot of times that power can become corrupt. What we've seen this year is the president of San Lorenzo, one of those 5 big teams, was, I believe, indicted. I don't know if it's actually... I know he's being investigated, and apparently what he did is he sold to families for $10,000, he sold the right for them to come and train and try to get onto the lower echelon of the teams of San Lorenzo's team or whatever.
The youth teams,
to try to make it up the ladder, so to speak.
That scandal erupted or was uncovered, I think, the week that the Pope died. Pope Francis, a staunch San Lorenzo fan, grew up supporting San Lorenzo, and he was, mostly practiced in and around that neighbourhood. There is a shrine to Pope Francis in the grounds of the San Lorenzo Stadium. And lots of effigies, lots of pictures, statues of Pope Francis in and around the San Lorenzo ground. And on the week he died, lots of people had the San Lorenzo shirt, the red and blue shirt, with a picture of the Pope where the club emblem should be. So a very staunch supporter. But that scandal erupted that week, and I think there was a great effort to try to suppress it because it was very embarrassing.
And one of the big supporters of San Lorenzo is also Viggo Mortensen,
of course,
the wonderful actor. Is a big San Lorenzo fan.
I mean, we can't talk about Argentine football without talking about Diego Maradona, who started at age 15 as a professional footballer at Argentina's juniors before he went on to Boca Juniors and then bigger and grander things at Barcelona and Napoli, among others. But his image, especially after he died, age 60, was it, in 2020, his image is everywhere now. Every wall, especially around the Argentina's juniors ground, there are murals 20 metres high being painted to him. It's quite remarkable what happened, his image, how it was always big, but it became something else after he died.
He was a very special person. You could love him or hate him, but he certainly pushed his point of view, and he did things that no other player had really ever done, trying to organize players in, I wouldn't say a labor union, but in trying to get some kind of deals, not for the big stars, but for the normal players.
I mean, he certainly evoked the passion we've been talking about. I mean, he was not always, it must be said, the nicest of guys. Didn't always, there were unwanted, unrecognised kids all over the place, in Cuba where he spent some time, certainly in Argentina. Those around him have been feeding off of his name for years. And there's a court case. I was outside the courthouse to the north of Buenos Aires a couple of months ago, where there is the court case going on into the medical team that was surrounding him in the days before and the days after he died. Should have been taken to a better hospital rather than some slightly run-down house on the outskirts of Buenos Aires where he wasn't given the treatment he should have got. It has to be said, he died age 60 after a lifetime of drug and alcohol abuse. But,
absolutely. And he's also somebody who came from Villa Fiorito, a very poor area in the south, outside the city in the south, and he worked his way up from that poverty. And in many ways, it's an incredible story.
I think the people from the Villas, from the poor areas of Buenos Aires, certainly identify with him, recognise him as not a saint by any means, but a phenomenal footballer who could rise up from the kind of areas you've just described. A slightly different character, slightly more clean-cut character in Lionel Messi. Very rarely any controversy surrounding him. From Rosario, as I mentioned before, the area, the Newell's Old Boys area, lower middle class, humble house. It was certainly not poverty-stricken, but a very ordinary house. With the primary school he went to was just a few metres away. And we interviewed, he got married a few years ago in Rosario, and we went up to do the story and talked to the people who knew him, his old primary school teachers who remembered him as not an especially studious boy, but who couldn't wait to get out onto the playground, the patio, after class to kick a ball around. So very popular, very likeable, but football was all he talked about, all he wanted to do.
Yeah, you could say that. Really the total opposite of Maradona in that sense, in the personal sense. One of my favorite Bruce Springsteen songs is "It's So Hard to Be a Saint in the City," and that pretty much describes what Maradona was. It's hard to be a saint.
Right. I mean, since Argentina, they finally won a major tournament with Messi when they won the Copa America, the national South American championship, right at the end of the pandemic. And it was thought he's in his 30s and he was never going to win anything. He never resonated, certainly in Buenos Aires, because he's not from Buenos Aires, in the same way that Diego did, until they won the Copa America. And I was working that day, We were in our office in the northern part of the city. See, the pandemic was still in full swing. People were still meant to be staying at home, wearing their masks. But traditionally, big football tournaments, wins are celebrated around the obelisk in the centre of Buenos Aires. Thousands of people congregated. And we were doing live interviews with the studio when that happened. But they'd won a tournament for the first time in many years. They won the Copa America for the first time in many years, with Messi leading the team. Single goal against Brazil, a Di Maria goal against Brazil, played in the Maracanã in Rio de Janeiro. But thousands of people congregated. They were drunk, they were drugged up, they were relieved to be out of their house, they were delighted about this victory.
Now, Daniel, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think after that they won something else.
I think it might. Don't ask any Frenchmen about this one, but yeah, the World Cup a couple of years later, certainly. And again, the third World Cup Argentina have won, but again with Messi leading the team out. So, as we speak, Argentina are still world champions, World Cup holders, so which they're delighted about, obviously.
And they won the next Copa America also.
As well. Yeah,
so they've really
so they're
been
on a roll. Yeah. So a great end to to Messi's career, certainly. If it is in fact going to end, he's in his late 30s now. Is he still going to play next year? We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
I would think so. He still is dynamite. He still is incredible with his penalty kicks and free kicks. He is really amazing.
And his image, his mural, in the days before that Copa America victory, you wouldn't find murals of Messi anywhere around Buenos Aires. Since those victories, certainly since the World Cup, you'll often see now Maradona and Messi together on the same wall, holding up their respective the 1986 World Cup and the 2022 World Cup.
I think Messi is loved, but Maradona is adored.
I would agree with that.
There's a different sense to it. You're not going to really put a graffiti of Messi. Just doesn't, I don't know, it's not in the same breath or whatever. Whereas with Maradona, there's graffiti all over the place. Murals that are, as you say, huge murals all over the place. That's not Messi's style, and Messi for many years was seen as a loser here. He'd never won until that final, that America's Cup.
Also, he left Argentina to go and play in Barcelona when he was 14 years old. So although he was on the youth team or the children's section of Newell's Old Boys, he never played for the first team, never played in the Argentine league. So if you wander around and talk to the elderly fans at Argentina's juniors, you'll always find the old guy who remembers seeing Maradona. Who remembers his magic goals, the magic touches. There's the history and the reminiscing that goes on there. So there's that passion which Messi never managed to engender in Argentina. Maybe he'll play after he's finished in the US. Maybe he will come and play a season or two here. I mean, the fans would love it, but
I certainly would.
I don't see Old Boys fan. Yes, so maybe he'll come to Newell's Old Boys. That would be quite something. Anyway, shall we make our predictions? Who's going to win on Sunday? Huracan or Platense?
Platense has beaten 3 of the top 5 big teams as visiting side in the last 3 weeks. I don't see why they can't do it again. They're a very defensive-minded team. I don't know if Huracan has the firepower. It seems like it really could be a 0-0 game going to penalties.
Right. Well, you're going to go Platense. I'm going to go for Huracan. They have the most beautiful stadium in Buenos Aires. The film, The Secreto de sus Ojos, The Secret of Her Eyes, the Oscar-winning film from a few years ago, a large part of that, they were pretending it was Racing, but a large part of it was actually filmed at the Huracan Stadium.
Not at Racing?
It wasn't filmed at Racing, no. It was because there's a much nicer ground, Huracan, with all this kind of Art Deco. It is quite beautiful. And they have a hot air balloon as their symbol, as their emblem. So I'm going to go with a hot air balloon as opposed to your squid.
Squid, squid versus the hot air balloon. No, it should be a fun game. it's interesting because you usually have teams that try to get, or leagues will try to get the big teams so that they get more people watching the games or whatever. Here you have two sides that have not huge followings. So I wonder if the interest will be that great in this game as opposed to if it was River Boca or San Lorenzo Boca.
Sure, yeah. It's certainly unusual. It's broken the mould
Yeah.
To a large degree. So, but yeah, let's see what happens on Sunday.
Good luck.